Silencio. Uh-huh.
So look, man, we back in LA, right?
Yeah.
LA, back in your hometown.
Yeah, man.
Where it all started for you.
Yeah, man.
What's this feel like on the eve of your sophomore effort? You know, we chopped it up in New York. We talked about, you know,
Right.
that vibration and where your efforts come from. But the actual album was made here. You know what I'm saying? So obviously, LA is an influence on this new endeavor. So talk to me about that a little bit.
Well, the album was recorded in Los Angeles, but it was made on Crenshaw Boulevard. And I'm gonna tell you, there's a difference in that in terms of approach. You know, people always like to look at LA from a Hollywood perspective, and it's much more in depth than that. You know what I mean? You know, it's basically this. You know, the energy that went into this album in particular basically is a reflection of my environment. When I did the first album, I was staying in an area called the Valley, and so it's a different vibration. And I have to refer to my man Ross G, may he rest. You know what I'm saying? We would talk about these references, and in terms of energy, you know, when I left LA, you know, or left the neighborhood, like the energy that was on the first album, it's there, but it's not there in terms of the raw, uncut energy. It was very relaxed. This one is a little more edgier, still refined in terms of just the energy and so forth. It's basically this, you know, Crenshaw Boulevard in terms of the vibe and the energy. You know, that's where we at. That's how we moving, and that's the energy you're gonna feel on this second album.
Okay. Well, let's talk about a couple of these tracks on here, because I got a couple faves myself.
Okay.
And being a fan of yours, like, there are some things that are signature you. And when you had me review the album, you let me know that your track listing wasn't in place just yet. You were still working out that idea.
Right.
But you did tell me to listen to this particular album first, and it was the joint called Afro Blue.
All right.
All I can say about that, first of all, is wow. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you.
And what I love about it is that there's a very simple hip-hop beat that's clean and dope that serves as your bass.
Right.
Put the scratches on there. For anybody in this age group, it takes you back to some old school hip-hop shit.
Right.
It really makes you feel good. But what I do notice also is that particular song, it almost seems like a slight departure from the rest of the stuff that's on there.
Yes.
Except for the joint Last Call. Transitional song.
Right.
Some scratches in it. It's kind of reminiscent.
Right.
But talk to me about that versus the rest of the tracks that are on the album.
Well, with that particular tune, that was originally slated for a rapper. Shout out to my man Gnu. You know what I mean? My man Gnu. That was actually I gave that track to him, but he never wrote anything to it. So when I met Gnu, he was in a group called UPS Crew. Shout out to Scarab and all those guys, UPS Crew. I was in college, so that was like, I was really capturing that energy of when I first met Gnu and that crew, which was like 1995, Santa Monica College, SMC. So this is like, I'm actually channeling my vibe in terms of the 94, 95 energy of how I was approaching music at that time in terms of samples. I was sampling a lot of Blue Note, a lot of Lou Donaldson and so forth. So I wanted to capture that essence on that particular song in terms of that 95 vibe.
Growth. I like it because of the beat, and then
Thank you.
Those bass chords, you know what I'm saying?
Thank you.
I really feel those bass chords. So talk to me a little bit more about playing, because I feel like with Change the Mood, it was different in terms of how you approached and made the music. With this one, you're playing a lot more keys.
Oh man, with Change the Mood, I was in a different vibration at that time. I was you know, in the Valley, you know, so it was a lot of, I was basically, how can I put it? It's like when you're in a relaxed environment, the best doesn't necessarily come out. Not to say that this first album wasn't, you know, I didn't put the full effort, but I didn't go let's put it this way, I've grown since that first album. So I think on this album, you'll hear an exaggerated, if you will, energy compared to the first album. I'm playing a lot more. There are no samples. There are no samples on the first one, actually. I made it a point to basically exercise my creativity as a musician, you know, because I feel as DJs, there's this big wall that people feel like, okay, we have to sample. And now bear in mind, I came out of the sampling, you know, family.
Exactly. So you know what it is. That's hip hop.
But I'm a musician first, so I understand chords and structures and so forth. Even in sampling, there's an art to sampling. You have to know what you're sampling, the energy that you're sampling, and how you're sampling it. So I play by ear. I'm not, you know, formally trained, but I know that energy doesn't lie. So I just went with the energy and just just recorded it.
That's right. And so that's a part of the vibe that I got. Like, this sounds very much like this is more jazz than hip hop, right? Because you're free playing. You know what I'm saying? It's not a written.
There's no rules.
There's no rules. There's not written notes that you had. You just sat down and you're playing it, and it has that feel.
Thank you.
So it really does. I don't want to limit you to hip hop, because as I know you as a DJ and as a musician,
that's my foundation.
Yeah, you cover everything.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We all at this age have hip hop as a foundation, but you cover everything.
But hip hop is a gumbo of everything.
Exactly.
Whether it be jazz, soul, funk, country, salsa, merengue, it's a gumbo it's the baby of black music and music in general.
That's right.
You know.
And in that regard, how does that inform your music as a musician? In terms of the gumbo of hip hop, how does that inform you specifically?
If anything, it has inspired me to reach beyond the status quo. I've always I've always been a seeker. I've always been a searcher. I've always wanted to go beyond what's being presented to me. What's, really going beyond scratching the surface, so to speak. As a result of me playing and recording, I learned more about myself in terms of me as a musician. Like, I'm on this album, I'm playing drums. On the first one, I wasn't playing drums. Everything was drum programming. There's drum programming on this one, but I'm also playing live drums as well. I feel this record I like to consider it the naked album in terms of just me stripping myself and burying myself to the world creatively. There's no boundaries. There's no rules. There's no, okay, you're going to get a hook over here. Somebody's going to start rapping on this part. It's like, no, it's like as a DJ, I wanted to basically take my sound and the sounds that I play, but put it in a creative, present it through this album in terms of the different influences. You know what I mean? So you're going to hear a little bit of everything that I play as a DJ, because it's a representation and a imprint of my sound.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was thinking about that. There really are no rules to your music, to this album. As I was listening to it, I noticed the lack of the double Dutch moment. Like, okay, this is where
right. You get to jump in.
This is going to come in. This is where the
right.
is going to come in. It's good because you've left room for vocals on it.
Right.
But they would also have to be breezy like jazz, because that's how you're playing this music, right?
Yeah.
And so you mentioned the drums. I've known you to be a drummer, although I've never seen you really play the drums. I knew that you were a drummer. Did you have formal training in that?
No.
So all of your musician stuff is by ear?
Basically.
Okay, cool. Got you. All right, so another one of the tracks I wanted to talk to you about was Nights in SF.
That song was sort of a pivotal moment where I actually had to get away from LA in the same way that I got away from LA when I went to New York to record the first album. You know what I mean? But the only difference was the first album, I did everything in LA. That particular song, I actually recorded when I was in San Francisco. That was actually part of an exodus at that moment. And I felt it was really capturing the energy of where I was at in the moment. Just, you know. And at the time, I was staying in an area, I didn't know anything. And here's the thing: like when I go in that area, I always stay in the Bay, you know. And this is my first time staying in. I recorded that album in the Tenderloin, and if anybody knows where the Tenderloin is, you know where the energy's at. It's dirty, it's grimy, you know. So I felt like, wow, like I was actually inspired by that energy, and I was just like, you know, let me just go ahead and write something, you know, an ode to that vibration at the time.
Well, that's interesting that you should say that it's dirty, because I don't find the song itself particularly dirty.
No, well, that's the thing, you know. It's art has its interpretations, you know. I like to find the beauty in things, because once upon a time it wasn't dirty, you know.
Indeed. So you're saying in that space you can tap into that energy.
Absolutely.
Back before it was really a dirty place, and bringing it into modern.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, it's about finding the soul and the soil of whatever you're at least when recording that, I could have recorded a headbanger, you know. I could have done that easily, but it's like, no, that's typical. I wanted to capture the beauty and the good things that I felt when I was, you know, in that moment over there. Okay. And there's a lot of beauty in that. Yeah. There's beauty in darkness.
Can't have light without the dark.
Yes, sir.
Before you even put out your first album, you used to rock with a brother friend of yours named Tim, T-I-M.
Yes, sir.
And he goes by The Imagination?
Yes.
Okay.
To kind of give you a backstory, me and Tim started off as a group called 4-Track Minds.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I've known Tim since 1987. I've known him since middle school, basically.
Did you guys go to the same school?
We did. We went to Audubon. Shout out to everybody that went to Audubon. You know what I'm saying? Audubon Middle School. And then I think he went to, I went to Dorsey. I think he went there for a semester or two, if I'm not mistaken. Probably one semester. But anyhow, we always, Dorsey High School, yes. So at some point, we always kept in contact with each other. And I found out at the time, we reunited because he was working on a project called Brio. He was working with a gentleman by the name of Steve Maestro out of Chicago. Shout out to Steve. And Michelle Laws of the Laws, legendary Laws family, Ronnie Laws, Herbert Laws, Deborah Laws, and so forth. Shout out to the Laws family. When we got together and was working on the album, Say What You Mean.
Say what you want, say what you need. I'll give it to you. Say what you want, say what you need. I'll give it to you.
Was kind of a experimental situation, and Michelle just came in and laid some vocals. We had Jamin come in. Shout out to Jamin Laws, who's on sax. He came in and added his essence. So it's a combination of the Laws family and for A-Ski and TIM. You know what I mean? And that's Michelle Laws on vocals. I was playing the chords out and messing with the drums, and Tim went in and put the coloring and the seasoning and the programming and so forth. And we just had her come in and do the vocals. And, you know, we always just tell her, like, Michelle, just do you. You know, we'll figure out everything later on. But right now, just whatever you feel at the moment, just do you. And from there on, it's stuck. And the vibration was genuine. And we kept it.
So, yeah, Spaced Out is my joint.
That one was basically another one of those tracks that was rapper or MC inspired. I believe that was another one that I had submitted to GNU for him to rhyme over, but he never rhymed over it. So I just went and just basically added. I didn't add that.
It's a good texture.
I could sample it though. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, to tie it back around, you know, that's really my boom bap record. You know what I mean? In terms of just really going beyond boom bap, I added, sort of like a soulful element to it. And yeah, that was basically, yeah, so that was one of those songs I kind of just did on the fly. You know what I mean? Shout out to GNU.
But as you're making an album, did you have people in mind, you know, an audience in mind for this?
It's one of those things. One of the things I learned is that whoever it gets into the hands of is to, that the universe is meant to give it to. It's not my job to no matter how much we market and push, we have no authority on whose hands it gets to. It belongs to the universe. So whoever embraces it, I embrace them with open arms musically.
You've yet to leave the country and bring your brand to the rest of the world. But online, you know, online makes the world smaller. So you've got followers in Germany, you've got followers in Australia,
Italy,
Tokyo, Italy.
Right.
But you got people out there.
Right.
What do you see in terms of this album taking you to some of these places so you can present?
Well, right now it's where I'm at a phase where we're tightening up the infrastructure in terms of business to where we can basically you know, go out and reach out to the different promoters and so forth and collaborate with other DJs as well, and basically finally touch ground. You know what I mean? I'm eyeing Germany right now. I'm looking at Japan, doing some stuff out there as well, and just going out, shaking hands and reaching out to people and you know, just spreading the love, so to speak. I've always looked at myself as a gypsy in terms of just intent. My intent has always been pure and has always been honest. And wherever the universe takes me within that journey, I'm embracing it, you know, with four wheels. And, you know, basically just really tightening up in terms of just reaching out to more people than I did the first album. I did a lot of radio push, and we're gonna do some, you know, radio stuff, but really now it's more about touching down in different countries and spreading the word about the album and really just going above and beyond what I did, because I learned a lot from the first album, you know, in terms of what to do and what not to do. And
do you have some specifics on that?
Marketing. You know, I'll get right to it. You know, my marketing approach has always been grassroots. I've never went with third parties and marketing companies, and I've always felt the greatest marketing company is your mouth. People don't understand. I'm about the music, but I'm also about the business too. You know, so you know, coming out of the structure of working at Virgins and the Interscopes and so forth, I understand the long-term vision as far as the power of marketing. But one of the things I learned within that journey as an intern was my big mouth. You know what I'm saying? Like, because it's one of those things, like, if the people aren't talking about it, you could put as much millions of dollars into it, and no, you know, it doesn't mean anything. It has to come from a earnest and a genuine place in order for the ship to sail. When those conversations start happening, that was the beauty of the first record. I was getting a lot of play in different, and it was a genuine thing. It wasn't a thing where I told people to pick certain songs to play. They chose it on their own. You know what I mean? I'm honored and grateful for that. I learned that you got to let the people pick the hits, you know, and it's coming from a genuine place. So I'm going to, you know, I'm going to definitely continue the campaign as far as tightening up the marketing in that sense, but having but keeping that grassroots, you know, approach in terms of promoting the music. It's about timing and where people are at the moment. Shoot, even where you're at the moment as a creator. What I'm doing right now may not be what I'm doing in the next 2 minutes. It's all about just really just kind of going with the flow, so to speak. Wherever the energy takes me, as a DJ or as a producer, it's sort of like they're basically cousins, in my opinion. You can't have one without the other, because the producer in me produces as a DJ, meaning that I'm looking for certain rhythms, I'm looking for certain vibrations.
One time for your money, here we go, let's go!
You know what I mean? But when I'm DJing, okay, I'm mixing and mastering, if you will, on the spot. I want certain drums to come in. I want certain breakdowns to come in.